At 3-something in the morning, Alex woke to something sitting beside the bed. An old woman hunched in a wheelchair, hood up, grey hair matted like wet rope. The shadows kept her face for themselves. She didn't move. She only watched. Story 1. Alex had learned the quiet of the house by heart. The tick of the baseboard heater, the fridge's buzz, the hallway nightlight that pooled a weak orange on the floor. It was a weak night, too early and too late at the same time. Alex lay on her back, covers to her collarbone, and tried to name what didn't belong. The chair's rubber wheels, the old cloak ragged at the hem, the way the figure slouched as if holding herself smaller to fit the dark. A thought lifted and hovered. Grandma? No. Whatever this was, it wasn't love. The thing moved, so fast the air seemed to pop. One heartbeat she was caved into the chair, the next she was on Alex's chest, knees planted, weight driving straight into the sternum. Pressure pinned Alex to the mattress. Breath wouldn't catch. The hood leaned inches from her face. A cave of cloth where a face should be. From inside that dark came a small animal sound. Half laugh, half snarl, that tickled the inner ear. Alex tried to lift her arms. The body understood the command, but the muscles didn't. Sleep paralysis. Then the woman raised one hand. The fingers were thin and too long. They brushed Alex's cheek, then raked down. A stinging sensation followed. Scratches. Again. Again. The scratching became slashing. Cheekbone to jaw, across the mouth, back up. Alex's scalp prickled with hot, helpless panic. She pushed a scream through her throat. No sound came, not even a cough. The silence didn't just exist, it pressed back against her. The woman's laugh thickened, a low, satisfied burble. Knees dug deeper as if kneeling on Alex's heart itself. Spots flared at the edges of vision. Tears leaked without permission. A single ridiculous thought shot through Alex's mind. Don't let her see it. And then fell apart because there was nothing to see under that hood. No eyes. Only that cave of cloth and the breath rolling out from it. Stale and damp. Then the scratching sped into a blur. The hood dipped until it touched Alex's nose. For a second, the whole world was the weight on her chest, the rasp of nails, the joyless laughing. Alex's mouth opened in a silent O. And as if the moment had embarrassed itself, it ended. Weight gone, hood gone, bed springs unpinched. Alex sat up like a drowning swimmer breaking surface and burst into a ragged sob. She snapped the lamp on. The room was plain again. Time did what time does. The fear receded into a cold shell at the back of the mind. Alex only touched it when something knocked against it. An article shared by a friend a year later, a phrase in the headline. The old hag. A sleep paralysis figure that other people had seen. Hooded, laughing, kneeling on the chest. The words made her skin rise, not because they explained it, but because they matched it. So it had a name. Names help, they say. Alex wasn't sure. Now, when the clock face blinks a quiet 3-something a.m., Alex doesn't look toward the chair she keeps by the window. She turned it to face the wall weeks ago. Most nights she forgets why. On the nights she remembers, she keeps her eyes closed and breathes, waiting for the hum of the house to come back, and for the rubber hush of wheels that never sound. Story 2. At 2 a.m, Mason woke to a shape already waiting. Tall, still, cut from the dark. A man in a hat stood against the wall above the bed, brim shaving the weak streetlight into a straight line. Mason tried to sit up. His body refused to comply. Halloween had done its work on him. Soccer practice, Kool-Aid staining the tongue, the thrill of a rare sleepover at Tyler's place, the goalie's house everyone said felt cozy, and then added, but kind of weird. The shelves of bobbleheads that watch the room from every angle. The laundry room window that, according to Tyler's dad, opened and shut on its own. And the rule Tyler delivered on the porch with a serious look. Don't bring up God around Mum. It sounded like a dare until Mason realized it wasn't. Upstairs they made the night ordinary. Jump scare videos on the family computer. Laughing too hard when the monster popped into frame. Talking about which girls were nice and which were impossible. The World Series murmured on the TV as they drifted. Mason fell asleep with that happy ache in the ribs you get from laughing. All the bobbleheads holding their poses. The room somehow changed without changing. Same blanket weight, same glow under the door. But the air shifted, and his muscles set like resin. Mason's eyes opened into a picture he would carry forever. A man all in black, not moving, facing the bed. The hat made the head larger than it should be. No face he could name, just the sense of being regarded from inside the dark. His hands wouldn't lift. He told his fingers to curl. They did not. He tried the throat. Nothing. A draft slipped from the hallway. The figure did not ripple, did not tilt. He thought to himself, this has to be a dream, then commanded, wake up. The shape stayed. It wasn't coming closer, and somehow that was worse. The longer it held its place, the more the idea of it took root. He's been here the whole time. He knows this room. He picked this spot. The hat ate the light, dividing ceiling from wall. Mason's heart knocked loud enough to shame him. Staring at it made the edges sharper. The room narrowed to 2 facts. He could not move, and the man would not move. Mason closed his eyes because not seeing felt like a kind of seeing he could control. He tried counting sheep like he was 6. 1, 2, 3. The brim waited behind his lids like an afterimage. 4, 5. At some point the count unspooled into nothing, and sleep found a way past the locked door of his body. Just before he fell, The last picture stamped itself. That hat's flat line where the wall met the light. The sense of eyes low under it. And the quiet, no-breathing rustle. Like the man had been inked into the room. The morning was a betrayal of sunlight. Both boys were alive, messy-haired, ordinary. Mason swallowed and decided he wouldn't say anything. Tyler beat him there. "I had a nightmare," he said, voice casual at first and then not. A man in a black suit with a hat came in. He killed everyone in the house. He swallowed. "Except you." The word "except" took all the air. Mason's answer was small and immediate. "I want to go home." He went home. He did not return. Tyler stopped showing up to practice, and whatever bridge a sleepover builds in 5th grade collapsed without anyone making a scene. Mason never learned if another family moved into that house or if the bobbleheads kept their guard. Years added themselves. The story faded to a thread he rarely tugged, unless something caught it. An October evening, a man in a fedora on a crowded sidewalk, a brim casting a clean shadow where there shouldn't be one. Story 3. Just before sleep took Riley, a voice from the nonsense dream stage leaned in through a bullhorn and said, "Now it starts." The room was dim, the blinds open, the air heavy. A soft fizzing ran across Riley's skin. Harmless, then not. In the hum above the bed, the ring in the ears found a rasping voice and started to scream. Sleep had always been the safe place. Tonight, Riley had done everything wrong. Left the lamp on for hours and snapped it dark. Crawled under the covers, still in stiff work clothes. Forgot to close the blinds. Let the room grow hot and stale. Phone in hand, scrolling. Stress stacked like books on the floor. 2 years of bad schedules, day naps, early alarms, late nights. The travel that never quite left the body. A friend had spent the week swapping stories about sleep paralysis. Riley had nodded along, secretly certain it was an other people problem. Family footnote. Riley's mother had it, documented and awful. But that was a fact filed away in a mental drawer Riley didn't open. The phone slipped from numb fingers. The edge between waking and dreams flared with little cartoon fragments. Voices that talked to a version of Riley inside the scene while the real one watched from the dark. A lawyer in a grey suit lifted a megaphone and said something like, "Oh, here we go," and the first bubbling ran over the arms and neck. Not painful, strange. Then, everywhere. The tinnitus that had whined all day deepened into a rasp. The rasp found a shape. An old woman's scream, breathy and torn, right beside the ear. White eyes, long nose. An image formed in his head. Riley was on his belly, face turned to the wall. Eyes stayed closed on purpose. This is in my head. It sounds real. It's not. The screen didn't care. It rode the ringing, braided into it, old and close. Riley tried to lift his arm. It felt like lifting something through sand. heavy, but not impossible. The thought snapped. Sleep paralysis? That thing? Keep the eyes shut. Their sensation climbed, effervescent under the skin, as if the body were a glass about to overflow. The mental image of the hag's outline sharpened in the mind. Hood of hair white as chalk dust, the nose like a hook. And yet, a ridiculous human annoyance flickered. It's the middle of the night. Keep it down. Then he noticed something worse. The picture changed when he pushed it. Made the eyes whiter, the mouth wider, and the scream returned the favour, as if his imagination were a knob that turned up the volume. Riley drifted, surfaced, drifted. Now on his back at a slight angle, the same sound riding the same ring. He could see the room behind closed eyelids as clear as if they were open. Bed, wall, the dimness cut by the street glow. If I open my eyes, I'll make it real. If I move, the scream will bite. Riley kept still, held breath between choices. The fizzing sensation crested. The sound held. Then, everything let go at once. Riley's eyes opened into a normal room, lamp on, nothing there. The mind, not allowed to panic, did. He sat up, ribs lifting fast, turned every light on, checked corners that had no business hiding anything. Stood awake for an hour making deals with no one. 2 nights passed without incident. Riley almost convinced himself the body had learned its lesson. On the 3rd night, the pre-dreaming fizzing sensation returned. The little impossible scenes with their own logic. And the sound cut across them. Not a scream this time, but a fast shoom. The Doppler of something zipping past a cartoon frame. Quiet, loud for a second, then gone. Riley's chest seized a breath like surfacing. No paralysis, no weight, just a startle and a flat thought it's starting again. It didn't. Stress was still there. The broken schedule was still there. The mother who could describe sleep paralysis from memory was still there. And the friend's research sat in Riley's head like a program left running. Sleep paralysis. A thing that happens. Not a haunting, not a possession. The labels can help sometimes. They don't stop the ring from trying on a voice when the house is too quiet. Riley loves sleep, that hasn't changed. What changed is the moment before it arrives. Now, there's a pause to listen for the fizzing under the skin, to guess whether the ringing sound will behave. Most nights end with a shrug and a safe slide into blankness. Some end with a light turned on just to be sure. When the room is dim and the blinds are open, Riley reaches for the switch and for half a second waits, listening for a scream that only the ear can make, or for a shoom that passes anyway. Story 4. Halfway down the stairs, Avery glanced through the window and saw a man standing in the middle of the yard. Tall, still, wearing a top hat that sliced the porch light into a hard line. The look back took a single heartbeat. The yard was empty. It was a simple night, back from seeing friends. A few minutes of the house to herself before the front door opened upstairs and parents filled the air with ordinary talk. Avery's room was on the lower level, the place you learn by feel, the nightlight's slow glow in the corner, the dresser that always catches your hip, the blanket that never stays where you left it. The yard moment filed itself under creepy but probably nothing. Avery went to bed at 11, and sleep took her. 2 hours later, the world pressed a finger to Avery's ribs and said, "Wake up." The command to roll onto a side toward the door went out. Nothing happened. Fingers wouldn't wiggle. Legs wouldn't lift. The room's air grew shallow, like someone else was using it. Avery opened her eyes because not knowing was worse. The corner by the nightlight had someone in it. The same hat. The same dark that behaves like a face without offering one. Not moving. Watching. Avery told the throat to make sound. The shape didn't flinch because no sound came. The seconds became objects, countable, stackable, while the body stayed stubborn and heavy. The top hat turned the nightlight's small circle into two halves. Safe glow on the wall, a human-sized cutout where it shouldn't be. Avery tried to slow her breathing. Her breath shook anyway. The thought that this is sleep paralysis clattered in, making the fear smarter, but not smaller. 40 seconds is a long time when your body won't join you. Avery chose not to blink, as if the open stare could hold the figure in place. Her eyes dried. The corner didn't. A blink came anyway, involuntary and hot. Gone. The room leaped back into being itself. The chest found air and let it out in a torn sound that passed for a voice. A tingling sensation flooded both arms at once. Pins and needles that feels like someone else's hands leaving. The bed creaked under a body that finally weighed what it should. The corner stayed empty. Half of Avery said don't leave the room. The stairs window would show the yard again and the yard might answer. The other half of her said go now. Light, voices, people. People won. Avery padded upstairs, unrolled a blanket on the floor by her mother's side of the bed, and lay there trying not to blink in case blinking made things return. Sleep came in slices. Morning did its usual ordinary trick. A week went by without a tall man or a hat. The window still caught Avery's eye on the staircase, and the nightlight's glow still drew attention to the corner it was meant to soften. The brain kept asking useless questions it loves. Was it a dream if you don't remember waking up to leave the room? What's a veil if you can look through it by accident? No answers. Just that sense of being watched. Most nights now, Avery takes the stairs without looking out. On the night she forgets and glances away, the yard is empty, except for the feeling that someone has already stepped out of it. So if you've gotten this far into the video, thank you so much for sticking around and listening. So I've been on quite a hiatus on this podcast, but as you've noticed, I'm back now with some fresh content. I'm really trying to give this channel one last push at becoming a success. I'm going to be focusing more on the long-form storytelling on this channel, but I am launching a new channel soon called THS Case Files. There'll be shorter, more visual content. So keep an eye out for that and show it some love. Also, I really need some more engagement on this channel, and I'm useless at this kind of stuff. So as people who watch YouTube, can any of you give me any insight into what kind of content compels you to comment on videos? I've always never wanted to go down the rage bait or drama on YouTube, but I'm kind of at a loss. So if you have any insight, let me know. Story 5. From the studio porch, Kai watched the backyard turn to ink. The palapa in the far corner held its own darkness. Until it didn't. Something taller than a man stood inside it, wearing a hat. It was not a shadow. It was a missing piece of the world. Curaçao's far northeast felt like a finished edge. No more road beyond the neighborhood, only scrub and wind and the sea. Kai had grown up there, safe and bored in the best way. At 16, he'd moved into the studio at the back of his family's lot. Kitchen, bathroom, bed. A small legal freedom tucked behind the main house. Health had become a ritual. Clean food, water only, gym 5 days a week. His body felt clear. The neighborhood didn't. Lately, his skin would rise without warning. Little waves of gooseflesh, heart ticking fast for no reason he could name. It only happened near home, and sometimes if he looked long enough into the yard's dark, he'd think he'd seen a figure. A man too far to call to. Quiet, present, wrong. His family leaned into the spiritual. Books, talk of energy and intuition, but Kai kept a practical fence around himself. Then came the day the fence failed. He brushed shoulders with his mother in the hall after school. The image slammed into his head before he could form a thought. A toilet bowl, entirely red. Gone in a blink. He said nothing. At the gym that night, his aunt called. She never called, and said, "Don't panic. Your mother is going to the hospital." She'd gone to the bathroom and the water had turned to blood. Guilt arrived fast, understanding years later. Doctors found a tumor on her uterus as big as a piece of fruit. Curaçao's care would send them to Bogota soon. They started making plans. That night, Kai sat on the porch bench, eyes on the dark. The palapa stood in the far left corner. Shelves, vases, a thatch roof. The usual shapes his eyes knew by memory. Then, the unusual was simply there. Inside the gazebo, a figure as tall as the beams. Long coat, wide brim hat. No legs he could separate from the dark. No face. The vases behind it were visible. The figure was not. The space it took seemed to absorb other space. Goosebumps rippled his arms. His heartbeat climbed. He didn't run and he didn't call. He did what had worked with lesser strangeness, ignored it. A long breath in, exhale. Back inside, video games, lights, an ordinary screen trying to overwrite an unordinary sight. It didn't take. Days later, after leaving a friend's, he crossed the yard. The studio sat dark. The light switch was on the right wall just inside. Between him and the switch, there he was again. The hat and the height. So close the black seemed to lean into the doorway. Kai stopped, looked away, looked back. Still there. He thought about waking his mother and decided that would make whatever this was more real. He walked forward. Each step made the air thicker, as if heat came off a body that consumed light. He reached the wall and put his palm next to the switch. At that distance, there were no features to find. No eyes, no fabric, only void. Face to chest with absence, his breath shallow, he paused on the thought he'd been avoiding. If I see his face, it will change me. He flipped the switch. The light came on. Nothing stood there. The room was a room again. Cheap paint, scuffed floor, the square of a bed. He stared at the blank he'd filled with a man and felt not relief, but the ache you get when a word is on your tongue and refuses to come. Months crowded the family with hospital forms and flight plans. In Bogota, the surgeons took the tumour and left his mother whole. They said time had been their ally by days. She healed, and the house returned to normal. The Hatman did not return. Kai walked past the palapa at dusk and kept his eyes on the path. He slept with the studio light on for a while, then forgot to, and the forgetting did not punish him. Years passed, the memory faded, a thread that held even when ignored. 12 years later, a thumbnail found him. A silhouette in a hat. A title asking a question he hadn't. Who is the Hatman? He clicked. Other people had seen the same height, the same brim, the same void. On rare nights, when he reaches for the studio switch in the dark, his hand pauses at the wall, hovering in the exact space where the black once was. He turns the light on anyway and looks at nothing. Just to be sure nothing is still there.